Welcome to this YouTube channel. In this video we are going to talk about top 10 facts about Shahnameh, the Book of Kings. So before starting this video, like this video, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future updates. The Shahnameh or Shahnameh, the Book of Kings, is the national epic of Greater Iran, authored by the Persian poet Ferdowsi between 977 and 1010 CE. The Shahnameh is one of the world's longest epic poems, with about 50,000 distichs or couplets, two-line lines. It primarily recounts the Persian Empire's mythical and, to a lesser extent, historical history from the dawn of time to the Muslim conquest in the 7th century. This national epic is commemorated throughout Iran, Azerbaijan, Afghanistan, and other Persian-influenced countries such as Georgia, Armenia, Turkey, and Dagestan. Here are the 10 facts about Shahnameh. Number 10. The work is considered a literary masterpiece, and the definitive expression of Iran's ethno-national, cultural identity in Persian culture and language. It is especially significant for modern Zoroastrians, since it chronicles the historical connections between the religion's origins, and the death of the last Sassanid ruler, which put an end to Zoroastrianism's power in Iran. Ferdowsi began work on the Shahnameh in 977 and finished it on March 8, 1010. Number 9. The Shahnameh is a poetic and historical monument, primarily a poetic rendition of what Ferdowsi, his contemporaries, and predecessors considered to be the record of Iran's ancient history. Many similar narratives were already written down in prose, such as the Abu Mansuri Shahnameh. Ferdowsi's work includes a few passages dispersed throughout the Shahnameh, that are totally his own creation. Number 8. The Shahnameh is an epic poem written in early New Persian with about 50,000 couplets. It is mostly based on a prose work of the same name compiled, in Ferdowsi's native Tus during his earlier life. This prose Shahnameh was, in turn, a translation of a Pahlavi, Middle Persian, work known as the Code-e-Nama, Book of Rulers, a late, Sasanian compilation of the history of Persia's kings and heroes from mythological times until Khosrau II's reign, 590 to 628. The Code-e-Nama provided historical information for the latter Sasanian period, but no historical sources for the early Sasanian period appear to have been used 3rd to 4th centuries. Ferdowsi contributed material that continued the saga, until the Muslim troops overthrew the Sasanians in the middle of the 7th century. Number 7. Daqiqi, a contemporary of Ferdowsi, poet at the court of the Samanid Empire, was the first to attempt versification of the Pahlavi Chronicle, but he was murdered violently after only finishing 1,000 poems. These lyrics, which relate with the rise of the prophet Zoroaster, were later integrated into Ferdowsi's own poetry with acknowledgement. Shahnameh's style combines elements of both written and oral literature. Some suggest Ferdowsi also used Zoroastrian nasks as sources, such as the now lost Shaddad. Number 6. Many other Pahlavi sources were used in the epic's composition, the most notable of which was the Karnamar Ardashir Babakan, which was originally written during the late Sassanid era, and gave accounts of how Ardashir I came to power, that are thought to be highly accurate due to their historical proximity. The text is written in late Middle Persian, which is the direct descendant of modern Persian. According to Zabihullah Safa, a large amount of the historical chronicles contained in Shahnameh are based on this epic, and there are several phrases and terms that may be matched between Ferdowsi's poem and this source. Number 5. According to Iranian tradition, Ferdowsi was upset by the demise of the Sassanid Empire and the ensuing rule of Arabs and Turks over the country. According to this view, the Shahnameh is primarily an attempt by him to preserve the memory of Persia's golden days, and convey it to a new generation so that they can learn and try to construct a better world. Despite the fact that most academics believe Ferdowsi's primary priority was the preservation of the pre-Islamic legacy of myth and history, a number of authors have formally contested this viewpoint. This section of the Shahnameh is very short, about 2,100 verses, or 4% of the overall book, and it describes events with the predictability, simplicity, and speed of a historical work. Number 4. Following an opening in praise of God and wisdom, the Shahnameh recounts the Sasanian belief in the creation of the world and man. After this, the account of the first man, Kiamaz, who also became the first king after a period of mountain living, is told. His grandson Hushung, son of Simak, found fire by accident and named the Sadeh feast after it. This part tells the stories of Tarmuras, Jamshid, Zarq, Kawa or Kava, Feridun, and his 3 sons Sam, Tur, and Araj, as well as his grandson Manacher. Almost two-thirds of the Shahnameh is devoted to the Age of Heroes, which spans Manacher's reign to Alexander the Great's conquest. This epoch is also known as the Kingdom of Kayanian, which established a long history of heroic epochs based on myth and legend. The Saka or Sistani heroes, who appear as the empire's backbone, play a significant role during this time period. Garshasp is referenced briefly with his son Nariman, whose own son Sam served as the main paladin of Manacher when reigning in Sistan. His son Zal and Zal's son Rostam, the bravest of the courageous, were his successors, followed by Farmeds. The romance of Zal and Rudba, Rostam's 7 stages, or labors, Rostam and Sorab, Sayavash and Sudabar, Rostam and Akvan Div, Bijan and Manijay romance, the conflicts with Afrasiab, Dakiki's retelling of the narrative of Goshtasp and Arhasp, and Rostam and Esfandia are among the stories mentioned in this. Number 3. The Shahnameh teaches a wide range of moral virtues, according to Jalal Khalagi Mutlaq, including worship of one God, religious uprightness, patriotism, love of wife, family, and children, and assisting the needy. The Shahnameh contains themes that have been viewed with distrust by successive Iranian rulers. The epic was generally overlooked during the reign of Muhammad Reza Shah in favor of more opaque, arcane, and dryly intellectual Persian literature. Historians observe that the epic's subject of regicide and monarch's incapacity did not sit well with the Iranian monarchy. Later, Muslim personalities such as Ali Shariati, the idol of Islamic reformist youth in the 1970s, were critical of the Shahnameh's contents since it contained passages critical of Islam. Ferdowsi coined the phrase Tof Bar to Ey Chark I Garden, Tof. Spit on your face, O heavens spit, to refer to the Muslim invaders who despoiled Zoroastrianism. Following the Shahnameh, a number of other works of a similar sort appeared in the Persian language's cultural domain over the years. All of these works were inspired by the Shahnameh in style and manner, but none of them were able to acquire the same level of reputation and popularity. Number 2. Some experts feel that the existence of works like the Shahnameh, which have had lasting and significant cultural and linguistic influence, is the fundamental reason why the modern Persian language today is more or less the same as that of Ferdowsi's time over 1,000 years ago. To put it another way, the Shahnameh has become one of the most important pillars of modern Persian literature. As indicated by countless references to the Shahnameh in their works, studying Ferdowsi's masterpiece became a necessity for acquiring mastery of the Persian language by later Persian poets. The Turanians of Shahnameh, whose sources are based on Avesta and Pahlavi scriptures, have no connections with Turks, contrary to popular perception. The Turanians of Shahnameh are an Iranian people who represent Iranian nomads from the Eurasian steppes and have no resemblance to Turkish culture. Turan, the Persian designation for the lands of Central Asia beyond the Oxus up until the 7th century, when the Shahnameh ends, was predominantly an Iranian-speaking region. The scope of the Iranian epic's influence is illustrated by the Turks who recognized it as their own ancient history as well as that of Iran, writes Richard Fry. The Turks were so inspired by this cycle of legends, that the Karakhanid dynasty in Central Asia called itself the family of Afrasiab, as it is known in Islamic history, in the 11th century AD. Number 1. Fath Ali Bondari Esfahani, a Persian scholar from Isfahan, completed the sole known Arabic translation of the Shahnameh in 1220 at the request of Al-Muazzam Isa, the Ayyubid governor of Damascus. The translation is Nasa, unrhyming, and it was mostly forgotten, until historian Abdul Wahab Azam printed it in full in Egypt in 1932. This modern edition was based on fragmented copies unearthed in Cambridge, Paris, Astana, Cairo, and Berlin that were incomplete and mostly imprecise. The latter had the most exact, full, and well-preserved Arabic form of original Bondari's translation. A variety of English versions exist, almost all of which are abridged. In his 1832 publication for the Oriental Translation Fund of Great Britain and Ireland, now part of the Royal Asiatic Society, James Atkinson of the East India Company's medical service undertook a translation into English. The Arthur Brothers and Edmund Warner released a 9-volume translation of the whole text between 1905 and 1925, which is now out of print. There are also 2 current incomplete translations of the Shahnameh. Reuben Levy's 1967 prose version, later edited by Armin Banani, and Dick Davis's 2006 poetry and prose version. In 2013, Ahmad Sadri published a new English translation of the work in prose. The Shahnameh traditions have also been preserved by the Parsis, Zoroastrians, whose forefathers fled to India in the 8th or 10th century to follow their religion in peace. Dr. Barman Sohrab G. Surti, with the help of Mars Banjara, released the first full translation of the Shahnameh from Persian verse to English prose in 7 volumes between 1986 and 1988. There are several French and German translations available. Italo Pizzi has produced an 8-volume Italian translation under the title Il Libro dei Re. 8 vol. Torino, Vincenzo Bona, 1886–1888, Poema epico Riccardo dal Persiano in versi italiani da Italo Pizzi, later reissued in 2 volumes with a compendium, from UTET, Turin, 1915. Between 1914 and 1918, Dastur Faramroz Kutar, and his brother Ervad Mahir Kutar translated the Shahnameh into Gujarati verse and prose and released 10 volumes. The Islamic Research Institute at McGill University's Tehran branch has issued a 2-volume Spanish translation. What do you think about this video? Do let us know down in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go.